So today I have a pod, a Line 6 Pod XT Live, and it's dead. I bought it broken. I don't have a power supply for it. So I'm just going to open it up and take a look. The power supply is a 9-volt AC power supply, which is kind of strange. Alright, well, I see something wrong. Looks like that chip is burnt to a crisp, so I'm going to investigate what that chip is and try to figure out if it can be replaced and think through what caused it to blow. So it turns out that that part is a quad op-amp, and it looks like this is the left and right channel, or maybe reversed. And so I think if I look at this channel, which is good, I can figure out what the parts are supposed to be for this channel and make sure these little surface mount resistors are good. And I'm going to order a new part. It's about 50 cents for this. But once I get the part, then I'll have to, I think I'll just lift this off, clean it up, get my power supply, and just try to check what the voltages are coming into that chip to see if I can figure out why it burned up. So I think I'll pull this board out so I can be sure about the parts I'm buying. Here's an interesting repair. So I'm taking it apart, and it looks like somebody's put some cardboard with some silicone to hold that power in place. And instead of repairing it, and then the power jack is actually glued in Here you can see on the back side that it's burned clean through. And these look like power traces here. So those are powering, probably powering. Yeah, I think those vias there and there probably come through to power this op amp. I don't know, we might have to jumper that. It might be a little dicey. And then this is loose, but I think it'll just require tightening this nut here. So the power jack here, it looks like it's got some cold solder joints there. I think that requires some repair, but I'm going to take a look at, I think I can order this straight from line 6, so I might just order that. Okay, so I've gotten the op amp kind of all cleaned out there, and it doesn't seem like it's shorting at all, and I've also kind of drawn a nice circuit diagram based on this other one. I think this is the right channel and this is the left channel, and going into the headphone jack. And so before I try to kind of get that all working again, I have my power supply, which this did not come with, and I'm just going to start looking at the voltages and see what we're looking at there. And I don't have the schematic, but everything's really clearly marked on the circuit board. And it's interesting because this requires an AC power supply, and it's a 9-volt AC power supply, and so the power supply really comes through a voltage doubler through here, and then comes out here, and you've got minus 15 and plus 15 and DC coming out of this end of it, and then you've got a regulator for 3 volts, 5 volts, and 8 volts. So it's kind of interesting how the power is working on here. So I just have to jumper this because this is the power switch. It's a nice beefy power supply too. I got the line 6 brand, but it was only about $22. There were some problems with the power jack, so I think I'm just going to resolder that. I have another one on order. Uh-oh. Yeah, already some smoke. Where's that from? Yeah, I saw some smoke. I don't know where it's coming from. Well, it's not drawing much current. It's coming from under there. Oh! Yeah, so we're shorting out underneath where that chip is. So I'm going to have to clean that out. Yeah, right inside there. Okay. So it seems to be shorting and still burning right underneath where this chip is. And so I'm going to have to figure out a way to either, I don't know, I'll have to figure out something. Looks like it's happening on this side. So the two power rails, you can kind of see them here and here, are coming from over here, plus and minus 15 volts. And then right here is where the board's burned. I'm just going to cut out this section and see if I can cut those power traces right there. And I think that'll solve that burning problem. I hope. And it's a three-sided board with some of those power rails going in the center of the board. Okay, so I took my little X-Acto knife and I cut back a little ways and I cut those two power traces. And now let's see if that continues to smoke. I'm just gonna So yeah, now that I cut that trace, we're actually seeing our processor come up, and I don't see anything else flaking out. We're hardly using any power. There we go. So that is okay. So got a ground right there. That's 5 volts plus 15 minus 15. Now let's see. 3, perfect. And there was an 8 volt, oh right there. 8 volts. So all the power is perfect on it. Okay, so here's the TLC 048C op amp that went out, and I had to do a little, I don't have a schematic, so I had to do a little reverse engineering, and so I think I can probably just solder leads to here and complete the wiring, because these resistors here are still in place and they still seem good. And so it looks like just one of, it's a quad op amp, and it looks like one of the op amps is amplifying the signal itself, and then the other 3 are used to increase the ability to go to a low impedance output like headphones. And I think that's what it's doing. Anyway, I'm going to try to solder these leads onto that chip, and it's really small, so I might have to do it under the microscope. We'll see. So again, here's the quad op amp that drives the headphone jack, and this is the left one that was completely burnt out, and so I've soldered in jumpers, and because the traces were completely burned up, there's 2 traces pads left, and there's kind of a big burnt hole underneath. And so I cleaned out that hole, and I I used the existing pads that were available, but the rest I had to reverse engineer the circuit and rewire it. I don't think I'd do it again. I would just not use the headphone jack. And you see, I did have to. I did go through the circuit board. I held it up to a light. It's just a 3-layer board, so I could hold it up to a light, see where there are no traces, and drill through so that I could turn that, so that I could route the power as well. So here on the back side, you can see where the circuit board is burned through. The power rails were actually shorting inside here. So back here, I cut the trace. This, you can see this is a 3-sided board, and here's one of the power rails, and this is the plus 15 and this is minus 15, but they're inside the board, so I just took a razor blade and cut through the traces to cut off the power going to here. But then to reconnect my chip, I drilled holes through here and holes through here, and then rerouted my power wires through here. And then also this is the input wire coming from here that originally came through here and went through a via to the underside of the chip. And so I don't know, hopefully it'll work. Okay, so this jack has clearly had problems, and somebody tried to fix it by just jamming it up. I'm going to remove it, and I bought a new one from a company out of Madison, Wisconsin called Full Compass, and I had pretty good service through them. Alright, so let's apply some power and see how this thing works. Turn it off. Feel for heat. I don't feel any. Okay, so I have my signal generator putting out 1 kilohertz, and I have the oscilloscope hooked up to the headphone jack, and you can see it's putting out 2 pretty good signals. They're a little bit noisy, I don't quite understand that, but not bad. And then here, if I hook up a little speaker, you can hear my tone, So my headphone jack's working. I don't think it was worth the effort, but yeah, if you want to fix it, there it is. Put a little Loctite on these nuts because they were all loose. I took it apart. Well, I'm not much of a guitarist, but these headphones sound pretty great. So I guess I'm glad I fixed them now. It's kind of be nice for practice on just trying not to wake everybody else up in the house. Plug in my amp. So there are some other things I did to the amp as well. I cleaned out all of the pots and with deoxit and oiled the shafts a little bit, tightened down the nuts, cleaned the display up with some plastic polish, which really is nice on some of the stuff that's had a hard life. Cleaned up all this stuff, cleaned underneath the contacts for this, and everything seems to be working great. Replaced the nuts on the back. The jacks didn't have to replace, but these nuts were all missing, so I replaced those. And any place there was a jack, I redid the solder joints, because the solder joints get a lot, I mean, something sticking out like this gives a solder joint a hard life, and just to make sure they were all, there was no cold solder joints on it. And then lastly, I updated the firmware on here using Line 6 Monkey. That erased all the programs that the previous user had, and it started fresh with it and gave it the latest firmware version. And so that's my fix. I'm pretty happy with it. It's built like a tank. So the thing that I think went wrong with this is that it's really easy to put a non-stereo jack into the phone's output, and if you do that, it shorts that amplifier out, the left channel of the amplifier. And so if I wanted to work on this more, I might put like a 50K resistor between the output and the amplifier, which would attenuate it a little bit, but it would also protect that amp from a short circuit like that. So anyways, it was a fun fix. It was an interesting power section figuring that out, and it was fun figuring out that amplifier. Please subscribe if you like the video, and thanks.